Hi everyone. I want to talk to you about the web and how it is simple. Sorry for my voice, but I kind of lost it, you see. My name is Marc. I work, co-founded at Antistatic, and I built websites since now 20 years. And I start with the hyperlink. Who is remembering hypercard? Yes, thank you, Guillaume. So that was basically like a website and a PowerPoint presentation program. So you could build games. So I did my first program there, and Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the web, took this hypercard, hypertext links concept to the web. It was first introduced by Ted Nelson, the concept of hypertext, allowing you to jump from one page to another. Then hypercard kind of popularized it, and then the web push it even further. And if you think of the hypertext link, it's such a missing opportunity that it's not bi-directional, because when you publish a website, you make a link to someone, to some other pages. The other pages doesn't have to accept the link, nor reject the link, nor even know that the link exists. And when you have relation databases and two-way relationship, then the link is really too simple to survive. But that's one of the key concept. I think that's why the web went so far, because it was simple. You don't have to have these both relations, and this is precisely why it won over the other technologies. And when you think of hypercard, which is really like a proprietary solutions versus the open web technologies, it's always this fight between Flash and what you can do with JavaScript and CSS animation API, what you used to do with applet Java, and maybe that would be also the fight between the native apps and progressive web apps. So all the web enthusiasts, they try to push hard to have the same experience you have with a proprietary solutions to implement open standards. We have still those books in the office if you want to check after. But I went through this book recently, and some of the designs came really old now, and it's nothing really relevant today. But there are examples that really look like today's websites and modern websites. So with this CSS animations and JavaScript library allowing us to have really rich experience. If you think about it, we were ahead of our time with Flash sites, and now it's getting back today. And I don't know if you heard about Houdini or WebAssembly or what the progressive web apps are going to be. This is the Houdini websites to check is it Houdini ready yet? And you have the different browser, and their attempt to implement some of the part of Houdini. And it's really encouraging. Of course, it's going a bit slowly, like always. But what it will allow us is really incredible. Act 2, we'll have an accessible web. I'm sure you agree. It's really like the theme of the 3-4 last years. People understand that the web is for everyone, and we need accessibility all the way. I mean accessibility the way you're thinking about it, but also technically, without JavaScript, and with wget. Someone doesn't know what it is? Okay. So it's a command line program to fetch a website. And this is basically a way to take a website offline. And this is part of the the accessibility for me, because you need this to work in order to have accessible internet. And also accessible to build. When I started doing websites, the show source button was really like gold to me, because I see a good web page, I go to see the source, all this code in all those tables and frames, but anyway, I get deep into this and understand how it works. And now I understand the preprocessors and JavaScript compilers, their role and what they allow the developers today. But it's such a like an essential pillar to the web to have access to the sources and to retry and build. Another accessibility issue is I have a friend of mine who had an app ID. I said he's a bit into, he had an IT background, so he wanted to build it himself. I said yeah, sure, just try. And he said what are the common practice today? And I said yeah, you have this, I don't know, Symfony or JavaScript ecosystem. And after a weekend, he said I even try to download a package manager and there was a really high barrier to just try something and try an ID. So we need to increase the accessibility of being able to the people to build and publish content and apps to the web. If you think about it, the way I learned HTML was magazines, like paper magazines, after with a floppy disk and after with CDs. And now there's a lot of resources online, courses. GitHub also offers a lot to try to understand and how different language works. And there's this Beaker browser I will talk about later, whose vision is to allow web without a server, and also to decrease the barrier of being able to publish something on the web. So that's key to the web. I love this accessibility to publish. Also, in this accessibility theme, there's also this forgiveness of the browser. So it helps embrace the chaos. If you misspell a color, or if you don't close a tag, or if you misspell something in your CSS, the browser will just ignore it and forgive you and try to display a page at its best. And that's core to how the web is accessible. Another theme is the resilient web. So last weekend, I went to my parents, and my mother, she has an iPhone 3GS. I know, an iPhone 6 years without throwing it away. That's crazy. So she asked me that why the weather, like the weather app, didn't work anymore. So I tried, and there was an error, not really user-friendly error about the Yahoo Weather API not supported anymore. So I said, well, this is why I love the web. There should be a website that you can add to your home screen and have the weather. And that was, yes, another argument for the winning open web. But no, because most of the weather websites just crash Safari on the iPhone. So there's no other browser choices on the App Store. So she's stuck to just open the computer or teletext to have the weather. And if you think about it, this is just a 6-year-old iPhone, so it's not like dinosaurs or whatever. But she could not update it and not having more application or even browse the web. So for me, it's the way I hate obsolescence and how I love the theoretical resilience of the web. So HTML and CSS are really think that way about resilience. If it doesn't understand, then it should ignore it. JavaScript also, they try to make this retrocompatibility the more they can. They have this rule that today browsers can display website from CERN, and the other way around, one of the first browser can display today's websites. But of course, we broke this rule. It's so tempting to have this JavaScript to scroll jacking the page. And, but let's try to avoid those situations, and just, if we add something that will break this rule, then why not writing it down? So saying, okay, maybe you have a too old iPhone and you need to upgrade to see the weather. No, seriously, try to explain in this NoScript tags. The NoScript tag shows the content when you don't have JavaScript. And there's also this unobstructive JavaScript that just, it's so easy to implement, but it's nowhere now on the web. And yeah, maybe people think it's not that easy to implement, but if you start with this concept, it's easy. So you just say, by default, there's no JavaScript. And then you had the JavaScript that had JS instead of Node.js. And then you could change the way the CSS is written, and also for every JavaScript API you use, you have to check first if it's supported before throwing an error. We all love a fast web, of course. It's so good to forget that data as is traveling the world, and we make it faster by tons of performance optimizations. Also, that's a real subject now, and the way we build the images, the code, the caching server techniques, etc. But the problem here, I think, is we have to rethink the way we implemented it every time the standards evolve. So with HTTP1, we put a huge CSS file all together because we want to lower the number of queries. But in HTTP2, it's better to have a specific CSS for every page or every component on the page. So the main thing about performance is forgetting what we did yesterday, see the new implementation, and learn and unlearn when a new implementation comes. And also, sometimes the data is already here, and there are lots of things happening now in offline first approach or offline performance approach. With service workers, of course, this new API that is so widely supported and so progressive enhanced at its design that we could use it now. And yeah, I remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago I heard about Hoodie. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's offline first and no backend approach. That led to better performance because you have everything happening offline, and you don't require a connection. Yeah, of course, sometimes to update or get new data, but everything is working offline. And that would be part of the gift today, because I think this book is great. You should read it. And it's about the service workers and progressive web apps. And Jeremy Kate is insisting on that progressive web apps are not only for apps. There's also this concept of HTTPS, the service workers, and the manifest are also for websites, and they gain performances with this. And also, the implementation of the API of service workers is quite straightforward. And because the strategy you have to cache file or do this man-in-the-middle proxy on your web page, it's quite different in every website. So of course, there would be a library to abstract this layer, but you really should consider not using a library and coding your service workers by hand and really following the strategy of your website. We all love a distributed web. Or do we have a distributed web? Not really. Who's using Gmail? Yeah. So email should be distributed technology, but we all use the same provider. Yeah. So I can say in the different concepts, that's the one we lost the most, I think. Now it's always SaaS, third-party scripts, loading on your web page. And the main actors are everywhere, and it's hard to not using them. And when it failed, internet is down. I don't know if you remember March 2017, but there was a bug in the S3 rebooting. I don't know exactly what, but like every main website we use was just down. And I think that's not the internet I love, the web I love. I prefer this distributed or decentralized web. And I think it's okay to feed the web monster with more data, but sometimes just consider the other options and try to follow the initiative or support the initiatives that are going against it. And I don't know if you heard about this DAT protocol. Who heard about this? Nobody? Okay. You should go to this Beaker browser. It's a browser that implements this DAT protocol, which is a peer-to-peer web protocol. So the idea is like serverless. So I open the browser and I say like, oh, I want to start a website. It creates a HTML page and just push my content, and it's already online through this DAT protocol. So it's hosted on my browser on my machine, and when another person goes to this website, is also it's also coming a server too. So it's like the peer-to-peer works. And there's also the Solid project from Tim Berners-Lee, who tries to decentralize the data and helping people to gain ownership of the data. You should really try this browser. It's really like, it's the beginning. There are like many projects that try to do that with blockchain and etc. But this is not with blockchain, and it's better without, I think, for this. But yeah, it's easy. Just download the browser and try it. Like host your website on your computer and just change the DNS to their DAT hash. It's not on mobile. It's just on desktop. But yeah, give it a try. We love a diverse web, getting away from monoculture. And of course, I had this GIF on my website because I don't know if you remember, but browser wars have been there since the beginning of the web. So for the newcomers, not dinosaurs, IE4 was so good that we want to forget Netscape. And I think developers helped the world to accept this Internet Explorer dominance. And then they really, really was a shame that we did that, because after it was more than 95% of users on Internet Explorer, and then the web kind of stuck in a winter of no new innovation, and that was really bad. And we are living this again. I don't know if you realized. This is the browser timeline history. So it's diverse, but now it's getting narrowed because everyone is using the same engine. For a bit of perspective, you had 7 browsers to browse 22 websites. Would be nice to have this ratio. Of course, not for testing, but for the good of the web, I think that would be nice. So please get away from this monopoly. I don't know, there are 6 different engines. Can anyone cite one of them? Do you know 6 different browser engines? Not like, because Chrome, Opera, Edge are using the same engine. They're using the Blink engine from Chrome. Hmm? What's your source? Because okay, but yeah, so it's dying because there won't be any more. But yeah, right, you're right. No, there's WebKit, there's Blink, there's Gecko, that's the main. There's Servo, which is another Mozilla initiative. There's Goanna, also Mozilla, and there's NetSurf. Yeah, I know there are just 6, but yeah, and there are people thinking the same. Okay. There's IndieWeb movement. I don't know if you heard about it. Taking back the power to the web and the diversity. They are just like tired of Facebook and Twitter, and they say you should also publish your own websites and own your data, and contributing to this new social media standards that are activity pub and web mentions, for instance, that let the different social media interact with each other and take a bit down this monopoly. So I read this tweet a few days ago, and no, please, don't do that. It's not the web I like. We love that the web is empowering people. So yeah, I kind of returned the concept you'll see. This was my personal website in 2002, I think. I don't know if you remember pop-ups, but they were so great. As a developer perspective or a designer perspective, you could say, I want to open this window, exactly this size, positioned this way. And that was like great technology. And you could interact with the different windows with JavaScript, easy. And from a user perspective, pop-ups were just ads coming and popping every time you just like leave a site. There's a pop-up coming saying, hey, you should, I don't know, click here. So, well, on the website, I used it a lot. Yeah, seriously. Didn't change a bit. So you open different pop-ups and to browse the project. And then came this Google toolbar for IE6, I guess, that has this nice feature. They were fighting advertisement at that time. And they just killed the technology. I mean, it's still working, but yeah. So it's a perspective questions, because I think marketing people just close this amazing web technology by abusing it. Or we could say the people get the power back by choosing the browser that was blocking pop-ups. So that's a way that people were just saying to the developers, to the ads sector, and to browser that they don't want those pop-ups anymore. And I'm curious what the browser will respond to these accept cookies everywhere, every time. And I'm sure if a new browser comes and say, like, with us, you just say for the whole web if you accept or not. And also the ad blockers, that will be also a game changer, I think. It's already there, but yeah, not really popular yet. We also have an open web. And as open, I think standards that allow developers, designers, users to have some latitude on a new technology, a room for creativity. So the standard that let the people change it or use it differently. And if you think of RSS, who is using RSS yet? Yes, 2. Okay. So that was really a thing. They add the button on Safari, which is, you know how Apple is really late on the web. So they just came back with a new version of Safari saying, like, now you can subscribe to RSS. And the way the standard was open, it allows to have these enclosed tags, and now you could use RSS for podcasts or for distributing other kind of multimedia content. And that was not really thought at the beginning of RSS. So that's the way the open standard just changed. Who's using podcasts? So you're using RSS too? And yeah, of course, for a while it was like huge, and then it came back. Yeah. I have to have this name on the presentation, sorry. We also love an evolving web. There was another so good technology that were frames, frame set. I use it a lot, and you don't have to reload the page. It's so fast. I had this tweet like a few weeks ago, so really funny for me. But so it was responsive by design. They gave better performance to websites because you don't have to load the menu on every pages. It was also fun to play with, and I think the coming implementation of CSS has killed a bit the frames, because we could use this absolute positioning of the menu to keep it floating on the left or on the right. The mobile also killed frames forever. Who doesn't know what frames is? Okay. You don't know. So for Gilles, who is building websites for 20 years, so it was a way to portion the page in two, from a side to another side, and then there was frames. So the frame set says you couldn't, for instance, this, you have 3 columns. One is 20%, one is all the rest of the space. Something we know. And then 20%. And then you have a center home with the nav on the left and ads on the right. And when you click on the link on every of the page, you could specify the targets of the frames. So when I click on the link, it opens here or on the global state. And yeah, we have to let the web evolve. That's okay. It's nice to remember frames, but nostalgia doesn't really work for the web, I think. It's good to have a museum, to have somewhere to just go dive and see how sweet it was, but yeah. The layout systems really evolved a lot those years, and since the content is still a liquid element, take this place in the medium, that's okay. Already the last concept. I love a playful web. And what I find fun and playful is like solving solution not the way it should be. Yeah, that's fun. So there's this website I designed for a LAN party a few years ago. And this is pixel art, also like really old concept. And you have this like two borders colors. So of course I use tables to do that. And there was this folded corner. And I say, maybe I shouldn't use an image for it, because that's another HTTP request. So let's build a table without images, just specifying the background color. And then, boom, that's the result. It's not really an optimization, in fact, because there's more bytes here than on the GIF. But that was fun to try, at least.
You could encode in base 64.
Sorry?
You could encode the image in base 64.
Yeah. But I didn't know base 64 that time. But yeah, of course, that's something I could do. And also, a few years later, like rounded corners didn't exist, really. Wasn't implemented yet. But every designers, they were doing rounded corners. And so we had this JavaScript library to round the corners. So I'm not really ashamed, because it was progressive enhancement. If you support this border radius, then it won't load the JavaScript. And then there's this new implementation supported everywhere of border radius. And then we came to flat design. No more rounded corner. But yeah, it was fun to find solutions to build a web page and push the... yeah, we know that these standards are getting implemented, and we can't wait to play with it. So we try to polyfill, try another way to push boundaries a bit and make the standards move quickly. So it's enthusiasm, but we always can't wait using a new feature. And yeah, that was the thing with the border radius. So I'm at the end of the 10 points, 10 concepts. The way we shape the web, the way we learn to unlearn, and always try to understand what's the underlying abstraction layer, what's the underlying basic concept, before jumping too quickly to abstraction, and understand how it works before using libraries to abstract it. And also, of course, keep the core value. So if you don't agree with those 10s, that's just my 10s concept that made me love the web. I'm sure Kevin will welcome, well, the WebMardi team will welcome a new speaker to have 10 more or 10 others. Voila. Thank you.